presents us with challenges beyond our control, people who exit without a word, situations that veer off course, and opportunities that slip away just when you thought you were on the right path. In those moments, you find yourself battling fiercely, desperately trying to alter what is no longer yours to change. But today, a powerful message emerges. Release your grip. As long as you strive to manage the unmanageable, you invite anxiety, frustration, and fear into your life. Remember, you weren't meant to shoulder it all. You are not omnipotent, and the weight of the world is not yours to bear. It's all on your shoulders. But here's the amazing part. You don't have to carry it alone. God is already in control. He sees what you can't see, understands what you can't comprehend, and is actively working behind the scenes. Even when it feels like everything is crumbling around you, ask yourself how much longer you plan to cling to what you cannot alter. Now is the moment to release. Now is the moment to embrace trust. It's the perfect opportunity to release your grip and witness the incredible things that unfold when you surrender control. Before you proceed, I invite you to take a moment for something impactful. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Mr. Luce, I recognize the things beyond my control, and I have faith in you to acknowledge them as well. Today marks the moment you choose to release what has become too heavy to carry. Let's put it on paper and collaborate on this journey. Psalm 55, verse 22, cast your burden upon the Lord, and he will sustain you. He will not allow the righteous to fall forever. There are moments in life when the burden of our concerns feels overwhelming. We find ourselves engulfed in fear, anxiety, and pain, questioning whether relief will ever come. Yet, in the heart of within that storm lies a timeless promise, a compelling reminder that we are never alone. This verse provides a crucial insight for navigating tough times. Place your burdens on Jehovah, and he will support you. He will not allow the righteous to remain in despair forever. This isn't merely a pleasant suggestion or an inspiring quote to display. It's a genuine call to release control and to stop holding on to what no longer serves us. In the face of what weighs us down, we were not meant to shoulder our burdens in isolation. Divine support is there to sustain, strengthen, and guide us. However, the crucial point is that we must learn to release those burdens. While this may seem straightforward, it's often where many struggle, and let's be honest about that. How often have we approached God, saying, "Sir, I entrust you with my problem," only to find ourselves grappling with it again the very next day? We are equally or worse worrying about the same thing. It is because in the bottom we never let go. We really keep clinging to fear. We keep trying to find our own solutions instead of fully trusting that God is in control. Imagine it as if you were carrying a backpack full of stones. Each stone represents a worry, economic problems, diseases, family conflicts, uncertainty of the future, and God is in front of you with his hands outstretched, saying, "Give them to me, I will carry them for you." But instead of to deliver them, what we do is shake our heads and say, "No, sir, I can do it alone," and we continue walking exhausted, carrying more weight than we can bear. It would not be easier to let go of that burden. God does not promise that life will be easy, but he does guarantee us that we will not have to face it alone. He will sustain us. That is, he will give us the strength, the support, and the resources necessary to move forward. He will not let us fall, and if we fall, it won't leave us lying there forever. Consider the tale of Joseph in the Old Testament. His own brothers betrayed him, selling him into slavery and leaving him behind. Instead of spending his life in lamentation, feeling victimized and questioning why he had to endure such suffering, he chose to trust and maintain his faith. He surrendered his burdens to God, and in time he was elevated to become one of the most powerful men in Egypt. We all face moments when life feels overwhelmingly heavy. Perhaps today, you find yourself in the depths of despair, betrayed, rejected, or humiliated. Maybe financial burdens are suffocating you, or illness has cast a shadow over your home. Yet, there's an undeniable truth you must hold on to. You won't remain in this darkness forever. Every trial serves a purpose, and though it may not be evident today, brighter days are ahead. When you place your trust in God and surrender your worries, you'll witness how everything starts to align perfectly. However, that calls for trust, a belief that He is indeed at work, even when your eyes have yet to perceive it, and the courage to release your fears. In moments of despair and resentment, I find the strength to declare, Lord, I may not grasp the situation, yet I place my trust in your divine guidance. A lot of individuals have faith in God, yet they struggle to place their trust in Him. There is a significant distinction between the two. Believing in God means acknowledging His existence, while trusting God involves surrendering control of your life to Him, finding peace in His promises, and realizing that even in the darkest times, He remains sovereign. Here's the remarkable truth. When you truly surrender your burdens to Him, you experience a sense of peace, not because the problem vanishes right away, but because you cease the struggle. True rest comes from the assurance that God is actively working for you. Consider the profound words of Jesus in Matthew 11, verse 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. This is not merely a promise of better sleep. It's an invitation to experience a deep, soul-nourishing peace that transcends understanding. Today, I challenge you to reflect. Are you ready to release your burdens? Are you prepared to stop battling alone and place your trust in God? It may not be easy at first. Your mind might resist relinquishing control. But remember, God is not a bystander in your life. He is the central figure in your narrative. No matter the size of your challenges, God is greater. No matter how bleak the path appears, He is the guiding light. No matter how fragile you feel, He will uplift you. This is His unwavering promise. God does not fail. As stated in 1 Peter 5, verse 7, cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. How often have you experienced that overwhelming anxiety where the burden of your concerns feels so heavy that it's hard to catch your breath? It's as if you're trapped in a tempest, with each negative thought crashing down like a massive wave, pulling you further into despair. Yet there is a truth that has the power to transform everything. God is taking care of you. It is not just a nice phrase. It is not a motivational idea that sounds good in a cup of coffee. It is a real promise. It is a fierce battle, an invisible enemy that robs us of peace, sleep, and joy. But God, it tells us clearly, throw all your anxiety on me, not a part, not just what you consider most important, everything, absolutely everything. But here's the problem. Many of us don't know how to let go of that burden. We cling to our fears as if they were part of us. We believe that worrying doesn't make us responsible, that thinking about the problem over and over again will give us a magic solution. And without realizing it, we become prisoners of our own mind. God is telling us not to carry this weight alone. Remember that we are not designed to endure the stresses of life without their help. Imagine that you are carrying a backpack full of stones, and someone offers to carry it for you, but instead of giving it to them, you decide to continue with it because you believe that it is your responsibility. It makes sense now, and yet that is exactly what we do with our worries. God invites you to surrender your anxiety to Him, assuring you that you can do so with confidence. You are not just a number in the universe or another face in the crowd. You are cherished and valuable. God pays attention to every detail of your life. Consider what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6. Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap, nor do they gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than they? If God cares for the birds, providing for their needs daily, how much more will He care for you? Here lies the essential truth. Entrusting our anxieties to God doesn't imply that our problems vanish into thin air. Rather, it signifies that we no longer carry them in solitude. It reflects our faith in God, believing that He is actively addressing what lies beyond our control. In a period marked by intense persecution of Christians, Peter penned these powerful words. His audience faced fear and uncertainty, living under the looming threat of arrest or death. Yet, rather than urging them to rely on their own strength or seek self-sufficient solutions, he encouraged them to cast all their anxieties upon God. This reveals an incredible truth. Regardless of the size of your problem, God surpasses it. No matter how dark the night may seem, God remains the light, and despite your fears, He is always in control. The world instills a sense of worry, conveying that anxiety, while stress is often seen as a part of life, there is a remarkable alternative that awaits us through divine guidance. Living in peace, trusting that He's in control, doesn't imply keep in mind that showing indifference or irresponsibility equates to fulfilling our obligations while relinquishing control over the results to others. How often have you found yourself worrying about an event that never actually happened? How many restless nights have you endured over matters that have already been resolved by a higher power? Anxiety acts like a thief, taking away precious moments, draining our energy, and depriving us of the joy found in life's blessings. Yet, a glimmer of hope remains, a path forward exists. It all begins with a choice, a leap of faith. Choosing to trust God and releasing your anxiety into His hands brings about a profound transformation within you. It's not that your problems vanish instantly. Rather, you come to understand that you are not fighting this battle alone. God is not merely an observer. He is not a figure who remains detached, watching your life unfold without taking action. He attends to your every need, comforts you in every tear, and supports you through every seemingly impossible situation. Today, in this very moment, I invite you to take on a challenge. Embrace the opportunity to release your anxiety. It's time to stop battling on your own and invite a higher power to handle what lies beyond your control. It might feel challenging initially. Your mind may cling to fear, but keep this in mind. God is already in control. Even when the storm rages and you can't see the light, He continues to grow stronger. Regardless of your worries about what lies ahead, He is already present. In moments of feeling overwhelmed, remember that God cares deeply for you. When you embrace this truth and choose to live by it, you unlock a profound peace that the world simply cannot offer, a peace that transcends all understanding. Psalms 46, verse 10, verse 3, "Be calm and recognize my divinity. I will be lifted high among the nations. I will be honored on earth." Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and step back from the relentless pace of a world that never slows down. In a society that urges us to act, to fret, and to maintain control, there lies a divine invitation to embrace stillness. But what does it truly mean to be still? It transcends mere idleness or turning a blind eye to our challenges. It embodies a profound choice rooted in trust. It's about releasing fear, anxiety, and despair while recognizing the true nature of the divine. We find ourselves in an era where uncertainty looms large, craving immediate answers and quick fixes, seeking assurances that everything will be all right. When our expectations go unmet, we often spiral into panic and worry, scrambling for solutions through sheer will. Yet, the message we receive is one of surrender. Cease the struggle, come to know me, and place your trust in me, for here lies peace. The reality is this: true knowledge of God eludes you when you hold tightly to control. His peace remains out of reach. When you find yourself tirelessly attempting to mend every situation, remember that it's time to pause, release your grip, and recognize that God remains sovereign, even amidst the chaos surrounding you. Amidst the turmoil that envelopes you, the divine presence of God endures. Consider the tale of Moses and the Israelites as they fled from Egypt, with Pharaoh's army pursuing them in a furious chase behind, while an uncertain future loomed ahead. The Red Sea loomed as an unyielding obstacle, providing no avenue for escape or human intervention. What words did God share with Moses during that pivotal moment? Rest assured, divine support is on your side, bringing you peace and comfort. This verse captures its true essence. God fights our battles when we learn to be still in Him. It's not in our despair or when we attempt to solve everything on our own. It's in our trust in ceasing the struggle of our flesh and resting in His sovereignty. The incredible truth is that God doesn't require our assistance to be. He doesn't need our worries to take action. He is already God, already in control, and has already penned the conclusion of the story. While we perceive chaos, God perceives purpose. In the midst of a storm, He recognizes the process shaping us. When we encounter a closed road, He envisions the miracle on the horizon. Understanding this comes when we choose stillness, when we opt to wait instead of acting out of fear, and when we lift our hands in surrender, proclaiming, "Lord, I trust in You." Consider the second part of the verse. I will rise above the nations, lifted high. I will stand on the earth. When the moment arrives, His glory will shine for all to witness. He will be lifted high on earth. His strength will be unmistakable, and we will reflect and say, "Now, I understand. In this moment, I see the purpose of God's actions." To reach that destination, we must embrace patience, cultivate trust, and find stillness within ourselves. Remember, anxiety won't draw us nearer to the divine, and despair won't hasten His purpose. Only through faith can we truly encounter His peace. Consider the words of Jesus in John 14, verse 27, "I bestow upon you my peace, a gift of tranquility I share with you. I offer it to you in a way that's truly unique. Keep your heart at ease and let go of fear." The world presents a peace contingent on circumstances, wealth, stability, and favorable conditions. In contrast, the peace of God remains unaffected by external factors. It is a tranquility you can experience even in the midst the chaos of the storm. Uncertainty looms large. It is only through this that we can discover true peace. In moments of stillness, we come to recognize the presence of the divine. Today, I invite you to embrace a challenge. Are you prepared to release control? Are you ready to cease the struggle and let God take the reins in your life? Regardless of the storm you find yourself in, regardless of the size of the obstacle, regardless of the fear it may invoke, God remains steadfast. When you truly grasp this truth, when you choose to find your peace in Him, and when you embrace stillness, you will encounter a profound experience that transcends all understanding. The divine peace that surpasses all understanding, as highlighted in Jeremiah 29, verse 11. "For I know the thoughts that I have toward you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you the end you hope for." Take a moment to reflect on this. God has a plan for your life, one that is not improvised or contingent on circumstances. It's a perfect, detailed plan conceived before your birth. Yet here lies the challenge. Often, when we find ourselves in the midst of trials, when everything around us seems to crumble, we question whether God truly knows what He's doing. Frustration sets in, doubt creeps in, and feelings of abandonment arise. We may start to believe that God's purpose for us has gone off course, that we've somehow derailed it, or that hope is lost. It is in these very moments that this verse serves as a steadfast anchor, reminding us that God clearly states, "I know the thoughts I have about you." He doesn't say, "I'm figuring out what to do with your life." He doesn't express, "I'm going to improvise and see what unfolds." He's already in the loop. Moreover, he already possesses the plan. Moreover, he understands what you're going through. But the key takeaway is this: focus on thoughts of peace, not negativity. Perhaps you find yourself navigating a challenging chapter. There may be aspects of your life that feel unclear. What God is allowing in this moment is not meant to destroy you, but rather to guide you toward the purpose He has in store for you. Explore the rich history of the people of Israel. At the time these words were penned, they found themselves in exile. They were captured and brought to Babylon. Separated from their land and distant from the comforts of home, they felt as though everything was beyond reach. They felt abandoned, convinced their narrative had reached its end. Yet amid the turmoil, a powerful message emerged. "I know the thoughts I have about you." At that moment, they were blind to the truth. They couldn't grasp the reality. Yet the divine foresight was already aware of what lay ahead. He understood the purpose behind it all. This exile was merely a chapter in their journey, leading them towards something far greater. You may find yourself in a similar situation today, feeling lost, as if your plans have crumbled and nothing aligns with your expectations. But remember this: there is a greater design at play. Everything is still under divine guidance. We perceive just a fragment of history, while the divine views the entirety. He envisions the start, the journey, and the conclusion, and that conclusion is not one of ruin. It is not one of failure. It is an ending brimming with hope. Check out Isaiah chapter 55, verse 8. "For my thoughts differ from your thoughts, and your paths are not my paths, declares Jehovah." We organize our lives with specific plans, believing that everything should unfold as we envision it. However, there is a greater perspective at play. He perceives what remains hidden from our view. He understands our true needs. He understands our genuine needs, even if we aren't fully aware of them at this moment. At times, we find ourselves on journeys that appear shrouded in darkness. He grants us passage through deserts. He keeps us waiting far beyond our desired time frame. However, this doesn't indicate a failure in His plan. Rather, it signifies that He is crafting something even greater. Consider the tale of Joseph, a young man brimming with ambition, who found himself betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned. After years of enduring pain, waiting and grappling with uncertainty, he may have felt abandoned by God. But what was truly unfolding in the divine plan? Ultimately, God not only liberated Joseph, but also raised him to a position of power for a purpose that surpassed his wildest dreams. Faith is about trusting in God, even when the situation is beyond our understanding. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 beautifully illustrates this. And we know that to those who love God, all things work together for good, not just the good, but all things, including those that seem unjust today, those that cause pain, and those that defy understanding. Today, I invite you to embrace a challenge. Consider trusting that God has a plan, even if it diverges from your own expectations. The narrative of your life may not be unfolding as you envisioned, but that doesn't signify a failure of purpose. Rather, it suggests that something greater is in the works, something beyond your wildest dreams. When the moment arrives, as you reflect on your journey, you'll come to understand that every challenge, every moment of sorrow, and every instance of patience served a greater purpose. And that purpose, it's reassuring to know that God is not merely watching your life unfold. He is the one crafting your narrative. And even if the conclusion isn't clear today, trust in the journey. In the midst of today's unpredictability, one truth remains clear. His plan for you is flawless. Embrace that trust, and you'll discover a peace that transcends understanding. Stanza 5, commit your way to the Lord. Trust in Him, and He will act. Dedicate your path to the Lord and place your trust in Him, and He will act. Have you ever found yourself in a moment of uncertainty, grappling with tough decisions, feeling the weight of the future on your shoulders, and encountering challenges that seem impossible to overcome at every turn? Amidst the turmoil, a divine message awaits you. Clara, place your path in His hands. Have faith in Him. He will act. But here's the challenge. Often we desire God's intervention in our lives while hesitating to relinquish control. We seek His assistance, yet cling tightly to our own plans, our logic, and what we perceive as best. When outcomes don't align with our expectations, we spiral into despair, doubt, and fear. God isn't asking you to understand everything before you place your trust in Him. He's not saying to wait until everything makes sense before you commit your way to Him. Instead, He's urging you to surrender your plans, your dreams, and your burdens now. The crucial point is that it's not merely about entrusting yourself while trying to figure things out on your own. We often find ourselves questioning whether God truly acts on our behalf. He will fulfill the commands of God. He doesn't suggest. Perhaps He does something. He doesn't express. I'll take some time to consider it. He assures you that action will be taken, that efforts will be made, and that movement will occur in your life, but it requires your faith. Take a moment to consider the events surrounding Abraham. Despite the promise of offspring and the creation of a great nation, time went on and there was still no sign of fulfillment. What actions did Abraham take? He sought to aid God in bringing His promise to fruition. Rather than waiting for the Lord's perfect timing, he took matters into his own hands and made a decision. He fathered a son with Hagar, the servant of his wife, Sarah. That wasn't the plan laid out. Instead, something far greater awaited. When Abraham finally placed his trust and ceased his attempts to control the situation, God fulfilled His promise and blessed him with Isaac. This mirrors our own experiences. Often, we find ourselves rushing God, desiring things to unfold on our timeline and in our preferred manner. Yet, God's timing is flawless. True trust in Him requires patience. Consider Proverbs 3 verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. Acknowledge Him in all your ways, and He will make your paths straight. This teaches us to trust even in uncertainty, even when the path ahead seems unclear. Even when everything appears to contradict your expectations, there remains an element of uncertainty, for God is infallible and never falters. Consider Peter when Jesus invited him to walk on water. As long as his eyes were on Jesus and he held on to his trust, he accomplished the extraordinary. However, the instant he shifted his focus to the waves, the wind, and the surrounding peril, his faith wavered, and he started to sink. The profound lesson here is clear. Your faith in God must not be swayed by your surroundings. It should not rely on whether the situation is advantageous or not. True faith isn't just about trusting when everything seems perfect. It's about maintaining that belief and trust even when uncertainty looms large. When you place your complete trust in God, He handles everything else. He opens doors where there seem to be none, provides abundantly, and even in the midst of challenges, He delivers on His promises at just the right time. Consider the words of Isaiah in chapter 41, verse 10. Fear not, for I am by your side. Do not lose heart, for I am your God, always here to support you. I will consistently support you with the strength of my justice. You are not alone on this journey. Divine support surrounds you. Embrace the opportunity to release fear, doubt, and anxiety. Trust in your timing, your purpose, and your unique plan. Today, I invite you to reflect. Have you truly dedicated your life to God, or are you merely offering Him fragments while clinging to your own desires? The reality is this: true divine presence cannot fully unfold in your life when you cling to the need for control over every aspect. Without trust in His guidance, reaching your desired destination will remain elusive. When you truly release your worries and embrace the unknown, trusting that while you may not understand, there is a higher power that does everything, shifts and transforms in ways that align with a greater purpose, regardless of how daunting the future or the circumstances may appear. Trust in God, and He will make it happen. When He does, you'll come to understand His plan. It exceeded all your wildest dreams. Stanza 6, Psalms 34, verse 17, when the righteous call out, Jehovah listens and rescues them from every trouble. Have you ever found yourself trapped in a problem that feels impossible to escape? How many restless nights have you endured? Your thoughts swirling with concerns, questioning whether God truly listens to you. In the heart of the storm, when fear and anxiety take hold, a profound question echoes within us. Is God listening? The answer is a resounding yes. God hears you, and not only hears you, but delivers you not from some anxieties of all. This verse is not only a consolation, it is a promise. God hears every prayer, every cry, every tear shed in silence. He is not indifferent to your pain. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not indifferent. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not indifferent. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not a passive spectator of your suffering. He is not hear and answer. But here is the key. The righteous cry out. They do not remain silent. They do not resign themselves to anguish. They do not try to solve everything in their own strength. They cry out to God. Look at what happened to the people of Israel when they were slaves in Egypt. Years of suffering, injustice, oppression. It seemed that God was silent, but Exodus chapter 3 verse 7 says, well, I have seen the affliction of my people who is in Egypt, and I have heard their cry because of their oppressors, for I have known their anguishes. God not only saw what they were experiencing, He heard their cry, and when the time came, He delivered them with power. Maybe today you feel like them. Maybe you think that God has forgotten about you, that your prayers bounce against heaven without answer. But God is not deaf to your pain. He listens, He knows, and in His perfect time, He acts, because anguish has an expiration date. The problem has an end. The pain will not last forever. God is already preparing your liberation. But here comes the question. You are crying out because there is something powerful in crying out to God. It is not the same to pray mechanically than to cry out with all your heart. It is not the same to talk to God as to seek Him in desperation, with to be sure that only He has the answer. Look at what Bartimaeus did, the blind man who was on the side of the road when Jesus was passing by. When he heard that it was Jesus who was coming, he did not remain silent. He did not wait for someone to give him permission. He shouted with all his might, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the people tried to silence him. They looked at him with contempt. They told him to be quiet, but he shouted even louder. And then Jesus stopped, because the cry of the righteous stops heaven, no matter how many voices they will make you doubt. No matter if the world says God doesn't listen, when you cry out in faith, God answers. But here's something else. God not only hear, but Libra. Look at Daniel in the lion's den. There was no escape. There was no human way to get out of there alive. But God shut His mouth, not because Daniel had the strength to fight them, but because God answered their cry. And so it is with you. Maybe today you are surrounded by lions. Maybe you feel like there's no way out. But here is the truth. God is still the same God who delivered Daniel, who delivered Israel, who healed Bartimaeus, is the God who is with you now. No matter how great the anguish, no matter how impossible the situation may seem, God already has the answer. But you need to cry out. You need to seek him in faith with the certainty that he will not leave you in anguish forever. And when you cry out, when you seek his face with all your heart, when you decide to trust that he is already at work, even if you don't see him, then the impossible happens, the chains break, the walls fall, the storm calms down, because God, he is not a distant God. He is a Father who listens and acts. So today, I want to ask you something. Have you cried out with all your heart, or have you just talked to God as a routine? Because the cry changes things. Fervent prayer moves the sky, and God is ready to answer you. Just wait, trust, because when you least expect it, he will deliver you. Verse 7, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, and I will be able to answer you. He has said, my grace is enough for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Therefore, I will gladly glory rather in my abilities, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Have you ever felt weak? Have you ever felt that you can't take it anymore? That you have tried everything and it just doesn't work? The frustration of wanting to move forward and feeling that you get stuck. The pain of fighting against a proof, that the discouragement of seeing that despite praying and striving, the battle is still there. That same thing happened to Paul. He had what he called a thorn in the flesh, a constant problem, an obstacle that did not go away. We do not know exactly what it was, but we do know something. It caused him pain, suffering. It weakened him, and so Paul did what any of us would do. He prayed, he cried out to God, he asked him to take away that which tormented him, not once, not twice, 3 times, and God's answer was surprising. He did not tell him that he would heal him. He did not tell him that he would free him from his suffering. He said something even more powerful. My grace is enough, because my power is perfected in weakness. That it was not the answer Paul expected, but it was the answer he needed, because here is the key. God does not always take the battle away. Sometimes, instead of removing the problem, he gives you the strength to overcome it. We want God to remove the obstacle, but God often uses that obstacle to make us stronger, to teach us to depend on him, so that in our weakness his power is seen. Because if everything were easy, if we never had struggles, if we never felt weakness, how would we learn to trust God? Look at what happened with Gideon. God called him to deliver Israel from their enemies, but instead of giving them a huge army, he took soldiers from thousands. He warred them to only 300. Why? Because God wanted to prove that victory did not depend on human strength, but on its power. And the same thing happens with you. Perhaps today, you might feel like you're lacking capacity, strength, resources, but here's the truth. Your strength isn't what matters. What truly counts is your willingness. In moments of weakness, that's when the divine shines through. Consider Moses, a man who stuttered and carried a troubled past, yet was chosen to lead an entire nation. Look at David, a humble shepherd, the least among his brothers, who became a king. And then there's Peter, an impulsive man with many flaws, transformed into the foundation of the church. Remember, it's not the capable that are called, it's those who are called that are equipped. That's why Paul embraced his weaknesses. He recognized a profound truth. In your weakest moments, when you feel you can't go on, that's when you truly understand your limitations. You are not in control. That's when God acts. It is easy to depend on God when everything is going well, but true faith is shown when in the trial you decide to trust. When you choose to say, Lord, I don't understand why I am going through this, but I trust that your grace is enough. Because your grace is, you don't need more money, more strength, more skills. You just need his grace. God's grace is not just a favor undeserved, is his strength in action. It's his love sustaining itself. It's his power carrying you beyond what you could accomplish on your own. Look at what Isaiah chapter 40 verse 29 says. He gives strength to the weary and multiplies the strength to the one who has none. That means God won't leave you in your weakness. He won't leave you defeated. But you need to learn to depend on Him, because as long as you keep trying to do it all with your own strength, you will continue to wear yourself out. But when you decide to trust, when you let His grace be enough, then everything changes. The circumstances may be the same, the problem may still be there, but you are no longer the same, because in your weakness God will become strong. So today I want to challenge you. You are willing to accept God's grace. You are ready to stop fighting with your own strength and allow God to work in you. No matter what you're facing, no matter how broken you feel, God has already promised that His grace is sufficient. When you yield to Him and allow His strength to shine through your weaknesses, you'll discover that what once felt unattainable transforms into a powerful testimony. It's not about your capabilities, it's about the incredible work God will accomplish within you, as highlighted in Deuteronomy 31 verse 8. 8, and the Lord goes before you, He will be with you, He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid or intimidated. Have you ever felt afraid of what is coming? That fear that paralyzes you, that makes you doubt, that fills your mind with unanswered questions. What will happen to my life? And if things do not go well? And if I fail? We live in a world where uncertainty is part of the day by day, and many times it makes us feel alone, vulnerable, without direction. But here is the truth. God has already gone before you. You are not walking blindly. You are not moving forward on an unknown path without guidance. God was already there. He already prepared the way. He already opened the doors. He removed the obstacles that you don't need to face and left those that will make you stronger. Because God is not only with us in, life goes before us. When the people of Israel were about to enter the promised land, they were afraid Moses would no longer be with them, and the uncertainty of what was to come filled them with fear. But God gave them this promise: I will go before you, I will not leave you, I will not abandon you. And that same promise is still for you today. Maybe you are facing a new challenge, a new one, work, an important decision, an unexpected change, and fear wants to convince you that you won't make it, that you're alone, that you don't have what it takes. But God tells you not to be afraid or intimidated, because fear is a liar. Fear wants you to believe that you can't, to stop, to give in. But God hasn't called you to live in fear. Look at what He said to Joshua in the 1 verse 9. See that I command you to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or dismayed, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. God does not promise a life without challenges, but He does promise that you will never face them. Only He will be with you. Not when all is well, only not when you feel strong. He will be with you in the darkest of times, in the most difficult seasons, in the days when you will be that you feel like you can't take it anymore, because God is not a God who abandons you when things get tough. He's the God who fights for you. Look what happened to the disciples in the storm. They were in the middle of the sea. The waves were pounding and the wind was fierce. Jesus wasn't in the boat, and they panicked. They thought they were going to die. But when everything Jesus came walking on the water, and Peter, in an act of faith, said to Him, Sir, if it is you, command me to come to you on the waters. Jesus said, Come, and Peter began to walk. He did the impossible. But the moment he turned his eyes away from Jesus and began to focus on the storm, on the waves, on the wind, he began to sink. And here is the teaching. You look at the circumstances, fear sinks you. But when you look at God, fear disappears, because God has never left you. He has never let you go. He goes before you. Look at what Isaiah says, chapter 43, verse 2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And if the rivers will not drown you, when you pass through the fire, you will not be burned, nor will the flame burn in you. God does not promise that you will not. There will be rivers. There will be no fire, there will be no storms, but it does promise that you will be safe in the midst of them. And maybe right now you are in a storm. Maybe you feel that everything is out of control, that you see no way out. But God has already gone ahead of you. He has already prepared the way. You just have to trust, because here is the truth. God has never lost a battle, and He is not going to start with you, so don't stop. Don't let fear steal from you what God has prepared for you. Keep going, because the one who promised to be with you never fails. Verse 9, Psalms chapter 23 verse. For though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because you will be with me. Your rod and your silence will breathe me into me. There are times in life when fear paralyzes us. We walk through dark valleys, situations that we don't understand, tests that seem endless, those seasons in which everything seems to be against you, in which you feel that the pain does not stop, in which it seems that the light has gone out and there is no way out. David understood that. He knew what it was like to flee for his life, what it was to hide in caves, what it was to feel betrayal and abandonment, but still, in the midst of all, that he wrote these words, even though they have in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because fear is real, but it has no power over someone who trusts in God. God never promised that He would not go through. He said that everything would be easy, that life would be an unhindered path, but He did promise something, that we would not be alone, and that changes everything. Look at the story of the 3 Hebrew youths. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into a fiery furnace because they would not bow down to the king. It was a certain death situation. In a moment of despair, the king peered into the furnace, and instead of 3 men, he beheld 4. This powerful vision serves as a reminder that in our darkest trials, we are never alone. When we traverse the flames, divine presence walks alongside us. When we journey through the valleys, we are met with unwavering support, not mere observation. He strides alongside you from afar. He holds you, lifts you up, strengthens you. David didn't say, if I ever pass through the valley of the shadow of death. He didn't say maybe one day he will. He said, even though I walk, because dark valleys are part of life, but there is a difference between going through them with fear and going through them with the certainty that God is with you. Look at what happened to the disciples when they were in La Barca. And a storm arose. Jesus, I was with them, but they still panicked. The wind was strong. The waves were beating with fury, and they thought they were going to die. But Jesus was asleep. Why? Because when you have the assurance that God is with you, there is no reason to fear. The disciples woke him up in despair, and Jesus just got up and calmed the sea, and then asked them why they are afraid. Where is their faith? Because here, there is the truth. The presence of God does not mean that there will be no storms. It means that the storms will not be able to sink you. It means that even in the worst moment of your life, God is still in control. David also said, your rod and your silence will give me encouragement. And this is key, because the rod and the silent are tools of the shepherd. The rod is to protect the sheep from enemies. The silent is for to guide them. That means that God is not only with you, but also protects you and guides you. Sometimes we wonder why God allows us to go through certain trials, but what we don't see is that He is leading us to a better place. What seems like a dark valley is actually the path to something greater. Joseph was sold into slavery, imprisoned, unjustly forgotten for years, but God was guiding him, and in the end that dark valley led him to the purpose God had for him, to be governor of Egypt and to save His people. What today seems like a valley of the shadow of death, tomorrow will be the testimony of how God brought you forward, because no matter how dark the path is, God is the light that guides you. So, if today you feel that you are in that valley, if today you feel that the struggle is too great, if today you feel that you are in that valley, that you can't take it anymore, remember this, you are not alone. God is with you. And if God is with you, there is nothing to fear. Verse 10, Psalms chapter 62, verse 8, wait on Him at all times, O peoples, pour out before Him your heart. God is our refuge. There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart, days when you feel exhausted, without strength, without desire to continue, in which uncertainty invades you, fear invades you, and anxiety robs you of peace. And that is where God tells you, wait on me. Trust, don't despair. Waiting on God does not mean crossing your arms, and doing nothing means trusting when you have no answers. It means believing when everything seems lost. It means clinging to His promise, even if you do not see the way out. David wrote these words in a moment of pressure, a moment where circumstances, they shouted that everything was against him, but instead of seeking refuge in people, in power, or in human strength, he decided to wait on God, because when you wait on God for His peace, fill your life. But here is the key. Pour out your heart before Him. It is not a superficial prayer. It is not repeating meaningless words. God wants you to speak to Him sincerely, to tell Him what you feel, what you think, what worries you. There are no sentences too long or words too nice to impress Him. What God wants is your heart. Look what Hannah did when she couldn't have children. She went to the temple and poured out her soul before God. She didn't pretend to be okay. She didn't stay silent. She cried. She cried. She cried. She talked to God as if she were talking to her best friend, and God heard her, because God always listens when a heart is poured out in front of Him. But the problem is that many times we want to carry everything alone. We want to solve our problems in our own way. We keep the pain, the worry, the anguish as if we were strong enough to bear everything, and then the weight becomes unbearable. We feel exhausted, empty, desperate. But God never asked us to carry that burden. He told us to release it into His hands. Jesus told him. He said in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." God does not want you to continue to carry what weighs you down. He wants you to give it up. And when you do, when you decide to trust Him, you discover something powerful. God is your refuge, not a temporary refuge, not a momentary escape. God is an eternal refuge when everything around you collapses. He stands firm when people fail you. He is still there when the world tells you there is no hope. God still has the last word. Look at Job's story. He lost everything, his family, his wealth, his health, everything a human being could fear losing. He lost it. But in the midst of his pain, Job waited on God, clung to Him, and in the end, God restored his life to what it seemed a defeat became a testimony. Because when you wait on God, He never leaves you in shame. So today, if you feel exhausted, if your heart is heavy, if you feel that you can't take it anymore, melt down before God. Tell Him what you feel. Tell Him what hurts. Let go of the weight. Because God is your refuge, and in Him you will always find rest. Verse 11, Nahum chapter 1, verse 7, Jehovah is good, strength in the day of trouble. And know those who trust in Him when the storm rages, when the news is not good, when it seems that everything is falling apart. There is something that does not change. God is good no matter what the world says, no matter what circumstances are in shouting at you. God is still good. And when the day of trouble comes, when everything seems to be against, when the fear wants to take over your heart, He is your strength. The storms of life are inevitable. We cannot avoid them. We cannot avoid them. But we can decide where we take refuge. And here is the difference between those who trust in God and those who do not. Those who trust in God have a safe place, because when the crisis comes, there are two options: trust in your own strength or take refuge in God. Often, we attempt to tackle every challenge independently, convinced of our ability to bear the weight, believing in our own strength. However, eventually we come to understand that our resilience has its limits. In that moment, God reassures us, "I am your strength." David grasped this truth completely, which is why he penned in Psalms 18 verse 2, "Jehovah is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my strength. In Him I will trust." He made it clear. His refuge was not found in money or connections. It was rooted in his unwavering faith in God. This perspective transforms everything. When you place your trust in God, the storms may rage, challenges may arise, and anguish may knock at your door. Yet you remain unshaken, not due to your own strength, but because God is your source of strength. Consider the story of Daniel in the lion's den. From a human standpoint, hope seemed lost and survival appeared impossible. Yet, Daniel did not rely on his own abilities. He did not attempt to flee or plead for mercy. Instead, he placed his trust in God, and God delivered him. Here lies the essence. God recognizes those who trust in him. He knows who continues to believe amidst trials, who maintains faith even when the path is unclear, and who stands firm even on their darkest days. They raise their hands and say, "Lord, I still believe in you," and God never abandons those who trust in him. Look at what happened to Job. He lost all his wealth, his family, his health. His friends told him that God had given him. But Job continued to trust, and in the end, God restored everything he had lost. Because God does not forget those who trust in him, strengthens them, lifts them up, makes witnesses of his power. When Paul and Silas were in prison, chained, beaten in a hopeless situation, they did something unexpected. They began to sing because they understood something that few understand. God is still good even in the storm, and while they worshipped in the darkness, God moved. The prison trembled, the doors they opened, freedom came, because God never leaves those who trust in him. So today, I want to ask you something. Where your trust is in your strength, in your money, in circumstances, or is it in God? For if your trust is in God, there is no day of trouble that can overcome you. He is your strength. He is your refuge. And when you trust in him, there is always hope. Verse 12, Psalms chapter 9, verse 10. Those who know your name will trust in you. For you, O Lord, have not forsaken those who know you. They searched for this. Imagine this. You're in the middle of a storm. The wind blows with fury. The rain hits your face, and everything seems to crumble around you. There's no shelter in sight, and every step you take feels heavier than the last. But then, in the midst of the chaos, you see a light, an open door, a safe place. As you cross the threshold, you realize that here, in this shelter, the storm no longer has power over you. That's what this verse tells us. It's not just an inspirational phrase or a message of encouragement. It's a powerful, life-changing truth. God doesn't abandon those who trust in him, and that trust is the inevitable result of knowing his name. But let's stop for a moment to consider what it really means to know his name. It's not just about knowing that God's name is Jehovah. In the Bible, a name signifies much more than mere identification. It embodies one's character and essence. Understanding someone's true identity means recognizing their faithfulness, justice, mercy, and omnipotence. When they make a promise, you can be assured it will be fulfilled. The crux of the matter is that trust isn't something forced upon us. Rather, it emerges organically from a genuine relationship with God. When you truly grasp who he is and have witnessed his faithfulness in your life, trusting him feels as instinctive as breathing. It's akin to relying on gravity to keep you grounded. You don't question it because you know him intimately. What's the path to truly knowing God in this manner? The solution is straightforward, yet deeply meaningful. Pursue him earnestly, not in a superficial manner or merely as a last resort in fleeting moments, but with a genuine heart, hungry and thirsty for his presence, because here is the promise. He does not forsake those who seek him. He never thinks of all the stories in the Bible where God showed his faithfulness to those who put their trust in him. David, persecuted by Saul, finding refuge and strength in God. Daniel in the lion's den, protected by the hand of the Almighty. The disciples in the midst of the storm at sea. Watching Jesus walk on the water and bring calm. God does not change. If in the past he never stopped those who sought him, neither will he do it with you. No matter how big the storm, how strong the wind, how dark the night is, when you seek him, he is there not as a theory, not as a distant concept, but as a real, tangible, unshakable refuge. But here's something crucial. Trusting God doesn't mean you'll never face difficulties. It doesn't mean life will always be easy. It means that in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of pain, in the midst of uncertainty, You won't be alone. It means that God's presence will be your refuge, your strength, your peace in the storm today. If you feel like you're in a battle, if there's fear, if there's uncertainty, I invite you to seek God with all your heart, not as a last resort, but as your first choice. Know Him, immerse yourself in His Word, approach Him in prayer, and you will discover that this promise is still alive. It is still real in you. Those who know your name will trust for you. O Lord, did not forsake those who sought you. This isn't merely a catchy saying to remember. It's a timeless truth, a solid foundation upon which you can construct your life. So, the real question is, do you know God well enough to place your complete trust in Him? When you truly understand Him, trust transforms from a challenge into an undeniable certainty. No matter the fear or the challenges you encounter, He will always be by your side. As stated in Isaiah 26 verse 3, you will keep in complete peace the one whose thoughts are steadfast because they trust in you. Picture a serene sea, perfectly still, its surface smooth like glass, mirroring a cloudless sky. Now, envision that same sea transforming into a fierce storm with howling winds and towering waves, creating chaos all around. This mirrors the turmoil of a mind devoid of peace, one moment calm, the next overwhelmed by anxiety, fear, and worries. But here lies the promise. God can grant you true peace, not a fleeting sense of calm, but a profound tranquility that withstands even the harshest of news. Experience a profound peace that is unbreakable and immovable, rooted in a fundamental principle: the focus of your thoughts. The verse emphasizes the importance of unwavering dedication, not merely thinking about God occasionally or praying in times of trouble. It speaks to those who maintain their focus on God, regardless of their circumstances. Yet, let's be honest, in today's world, this is a challenge. Everything around us is crafted to distract, to instill worry, and to rob us of our peace. We are bombarded with news of crises, economic turmoil, illnesses, conflicts, and social media filled with comparison and anxiety. It often feels as if the world is incessantly shouting, "Be afraid, worry, lose control." However, God offers us a different path. He assures us that by keeping our minds anchored in Him, we can find true peace. But how do we put this into practice? How do we maintain that focus? In God, when everything seems to be against us, this is where the second part of the verse comes in, because in you He has trusted. There is the key. It is not only about thinking about God, but about trusting Him. When you trust someone, you relax in His presence. You are not afraid of what may happen because you know that person will not fail you. So it is with God. Peace does not come from the absence of problems, but of the certainty that God is in control, even in the midst of them. Look at the life of Jesus. On one occasion, He was in a boat with His disciples. In the middle of a fierce storm, the wind whipped furiously, the waves threatened to sink the waves, and His disciples were desperate, screaming in fear. But Jesus was sleeping. Think about this. How is it possible to sleep in the middle of a storm? Jesus wasn't worried because He trusted the Father. His peace didn't depend on what was happening outside, but on what He knew in His heart. God was in control, and it's exactly the same thing that He offers us, a peace so deep that not even the worst storms in life can steal it. But here's something you should know. This peace is not automatic. It's not like one day. It is simply you will wake up and suddenly nothing will worry you anymore. It is a daily process. It is a mental battle in which you decide what you will give your attention to. When you dedicate your day to absorbing negative news, allowing fear and anxiety to dominate your thoughts, achieving peace becomes unattainable. However, by immersing yourself in the Word of God, recalling His promises, and choosing to trust Him regardless of your circumstances, you can cultivate a profound sense of peace within your heart. Imagine a tree standing tall by a river. Regardless of the shifting weather, whether it faces heat or cold, that tree remains vibrant and resilient. Its strength lies in its deep roots, drawing nourishment from a steady source of water. This is a mind that remains steadfast in faith. Regardless of circumstances, it does not falter or fade, for it is linked to the wellspring of genuine tranquility. In today's world, countless misleading promises of peace abound. Individuals chase after peace through wealth, achievements, connections, and distractions, yet these are fleeting. Money can vanish. Success is often unpredictable, and relationships may crumble. True peace, the kind that endures, is a gift from God. The remarkable aspect of this peace is its independence from your situation. Even amidst the fiercest storms of life, you can still experience profound tranquility. Peace is not an internal state. It arises from external sources rooted in complete trust in God. So, consider this. Where is your focus on problems, fear, the news, or the unwavering truth of God? Those who steadfastly focus their thoughts on you will find perfect peace. For God has placed His trust in you. He desires to bestow this peace upon you. This is not an exclusive benefit for a select few. This is a promise for all who place their trust in Him, but it's essential for you to keep your thoughts anchored in Him today. When fear or anxiety creeps in, pause and shift your focus. Recall who God is and reflect on what He has accomplished in your life. Remember that He is in control, and you will feel His peace begin to fill your heart. It's not magic, it's trust. When you truly trust in God, nothing, absolutely nothing, can take away your peace. As stated in Psalm 121 verses 7 to 8, Jehovah will protect you from all evil. He will guard your soul. He will safeguard your comings and goings, now and forever. Close your eyes for a moment and envision this. You are navigating a perilous path with deep abysses on either side and unstable stones beneath your feet. The future is uncertain and every step feels risky, but then someone walks alongside you. It's not just anyone, it's someone strong, someone who knows exactly where you're going, someone who won't let you fall. That's what God promises in this verse. He keeps you. He doesn't just take care of you in the tough times. He's not just there when things look dangerous. He keeps you at all times, in every outing and in every inning from now on and forever. But here's something key. Jehovah will keep you from all evil. And here someone might say, wait for all evil, but I've been through trouble, loss, hard times. If God keeps me from all evil, why do I keep facing trials? The key is in the second part. He'll guard your soul. God doesn't promise you'll never face trouble. Doesn't promise that life will be easy and unchallenged. What He promises is that in the midst of any situation, your soul will be secure. Your heart, your essence, your purpose in it will not be destroyed. You can go through storms, but you will not sink. You can walk through the fire, but you will not be consumed. Look at the story of Joseph, sold by his own brothers, betrayed, falsely accused, imprisoned. Anyone could say that evil reached him, but number, because God kept it, and what seemed to be its undoing ended up being the way for His purpose. What the enemy wanted to use for evil, God turned it into good. That's what it means. God guarding your soul means that even in the moments when you don't understand what's going on, He's still in control, He's still at work, and there's more. Jehovah will guard your outflow and your inward from now on, and you forever know what that means, that God is in your every step, not just in the big moments of your life, not just when you have to make tough decisions, but in the little things on a day-to-day basis. When you go out to work, when you come home, when you face the unknown, when you start a new chapter in your life, He's there guarding you. The problem is that a lot of times we don't see it. We think that we are alone, that everything depends on our strengths, our intelligence, our planning. But the truth is that there is a God who is taking care of you, even when you don't even realize how many times you have been about to make a decision that would have changed your life for the worse. and for some reason something stopped you. How many times? Have you been in danger without even knowing it? How many times have you been in danger? I feel peace in moments where everything seemed to fall apart. That's no coincidence. That's God keeping you, protecting you, guiding you even when you don't see it. But there's something you need to do. Trust, because even though God is guarding your life, if you live in fear, if you constantly doubt His protection, if you let anxiety control you, you won't live in the peace He wants to give you. Think of a child who goes hand in hand with the father. While the father holds him, the child is safe. But if the child begins to tremble with fear and want to let go because he thinks he is going to fall, he will lose the peace of knowing that he is protected. So many times God has us, God keeps us, God protects us, but our mind is filled with fear, doubts, uncertainty. Today I want to tell you something. God is in control, even if you don't understand what happens, even if you don't see the way out, even though you feel that evil surrounds you. He is guarding your soul. He is guarding your exit and your entrance from now on and forever. So breathe. Stop fighting with your own strength. Trust. Walk knowing that you are not alone, that you are not adrift, that you are not in danger. Because He who guards your life never sleeps, never rests, never leaves you. If you feel evil lurking in your mind, if uncertainty robs you of peace, do this. Remember this promise. Hold on to it. Repeat it in your heart. Because no matter what happens, God keeps you from now on and forever. Verse 15, John chapter 14, verse 27. Peace, I leave you my peace. I give to you not as the world gives. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you are in the middle of chaos, news full of problems, accounts to pay, difficult decisions, complicated relationships. Anxiety whispers in your ear, and if you don't make it, and if everything goes wrong, and if the future is worse than you think, your heart beats faster, the pressure in your chest increases, and suddenly you feel that everything is too much, and in the midst of that whirlwind, a voice rises above the noise. Peace, I leave you my peace, I give you. Jesus did not say this in a moment of calm. It was not in a rose garden or on a sunny day. Without worries number, He said it at the Last Supper the night before His crucifixion. He knew what was coming. He knew that suspension was going to face a scary fear. I knew they would see Him get arrested, beaten, humiliated, and killed. And just before all, that He leaves them a promise. My peace I give you, but wait a minute. What does this peace mean? Because if we look at the world, peace seems to be something that depends on the circumstances. Peace is to have money in the account. Peace is that everything is under control. Peace is that there are no problems, that life is predictable. But Jesus says something incredible. I do not give it to you as the world gives it. The world gives a fragile peace, a peace that is broken with the slightest difficulty. Today you are calm because everything is going well, but tomorrow bad news arrives, and that peace disappears. It is a conditional peace, but the peace of Jesus is not like that. It is a peace that does not depend on what happens outside. It is a peace that can be in one heart in the midst of the storm, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of pain. Is the peace that allowed Jesus to sleep in a boat while a storm threatened to sink it. It is the peace that made Stephen, as he was stoned to death, look to heaven with confidence. It is the peace that led Paul and Silas to sing hymns in a dark and cold prison. It is a peace that it's not based on the absence of problems, but on the certainty of who is in control. Jesus says, don't let your heart be troubled nor be afraid. But let's be honest, how not to be afraid when the future is uncertain, how not to be troubled when problems seem giant. Here's the secret. God's peace is not something you create on your own. It's something He gives you. It's not about that you try to be at peace. It is not a matter of repeating positive phrases or suppressing emotions. It is a peace that comes from above. It is a gift, but there is something you must do. Receive it. Because the peace of God is available, but many do not experience it because they continue to trust in the peace of the world. They continue to think that they will be fine if everything goes as they expect. But Jesus does not promise that everything will be easy. He promises that his peace will be with you in the midst of it all. Think of Peter when Jesus on the water. Peter had faith and got out of the boat. While he had his eyes on Jesus, he walked on the water. But when he looked at the wind and the waves, fear came in and began to sink. That happens to us. If we keep our eyes on God, his peace sustains us. But if we put our attention on the waves, on the troubles in the water, fear we sink. Today, Jesus tells you, my peace I give you, but it's not just any peace. It's not the peace of a good day. It's not the peace of everything going well. It's not the peace of the absence of problems. It's a supernatural peace, a peace that defies logic, a peace that can't be explained, just experienced. And here's the most important question. You've received this peace because it's just about listening to it. It's not just about wanting it. It's about trusting in Jesus above any circumstance. If today your heart is troubled, if fear has stolen your peace, I want you to do something. Breathe, close your eyes, and tell God, Lord, I receive your peace. I don't want the peace of the world. I want yours. Help me to trust you. Because when you understand that Jesus has already conquered everything, what scares you when you understand that he is bigger than any problem, that peace begins to fill your heart no matter the storm, no matter the wind, no matter the chaos. Jesus keep saying the same thing, my peace I give you. And that peace, if you receive it, will sustain you in any circumstance. If this message spoke to your heart, don't leave without declaring it. Right in the comments, Lord, loose what you don't, I can control and trust you. Because when you say it in faith, you are taking a step towards the peace that only God can give you. Leave it in his hands and watch how he works. Since the beginning of time, human beings have struggled to take control of their lives, as if absolute control were the key to their happiness. This battle is not new. In fact, the Bible shows us how Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden gave into the temptation to want to decide for themselves what was good and bad. They ate the forbidden fruit not out of hunger, but out of a desire to be equal to God, to manage their own destiny without depending on him. That first act of rebellion reveals an uncomfortable truth. Our fallen nature longs to dominate what was never designed to be in our hands. But why do we cling so tightly to control? Deep down, there is a deep insecurity. We believe that if we plan every detail, if we force situations our way, we will avoid pain or failure. However, life reminds us again and again that no matter how hard we try, there are greater forces that escape our control. An unexpected illness, the loss of a job, a relationship that breaks up, they are blows that make us see our fragility and confront us with an uncomfortable question. Are we really masters of our path? The problem is not planning or responsibility. God calls us to be wise, but the obsession with guaranteeing results. When Jacob tricked his father into stealing Esau's blessing, he thought his lies would secure his future. However, years later, he paid the consequences. He had to flee, was deceived by Laban, and lived decades away from his land. His story teaches us that manipulating circumstances not only exhausts the soul, but delays God's purpose. God already had a plan for him, but Jacob chose the stormy shortcut of his own strength. Even figures like Moses, chosen to deliver Israel, first tried to act on his own. Seeing the oppression of his people, he killed an Egyptian, believing that with his own hands he could bring about justice. The result was 40 years in the desert, far from his mission. Sometimes God allows our efforts to fail so that we understand a liberating truth. It is not our ability that changes circumstances, but his power. Only when Moses let go of his self-sufficiency did God use him to open the Red Sea. Today, you repeat that same pattern. You stay up late making plans, demand immediate answers to your prayers, or cling to relationships or dreams that God wants you to let go. You think that if you don't try your hardest, everything will fall apart. But the word is clear. Not with might, nor with might, but with my spirit, Zechariah 4 verse 6. Every time you insist on being at the helm, you say to God, I trust my strategy more than your wisdom. And so, without realizing it, you turn control into an idol. Jesus, on the other hand, modeled a life of total dependence. In the Garden of Gethsemane, in front of the cross, he sweated blood and cried, Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. But he ended with the most powerful words, Not my will, but yours be done, Luke 22 verse 42. He, being God, chose to submit. Why do we, being limited, insist on governing what we do not even understand? Peace does not come when everything goes our way, but when we rest in the one who sees the whole picture. Think about this. What are you trying to control today? The opinion of others? Your children's future? The success of your business? Recognize that impulse. Don't deny it. Then ask yourself, has my eagerness to master this brought me peace or anguish? Anxiety is a sign that you've crossed the line between responsible stewardship and the arrogance of control. God does not ask you to abandon your dreams, but to place them in His hands, because He not only knows the end, but He has already prepared the resources to get you there. Psalm 127 verse 1 puts it bluntly, Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. You can put in the effort, but if God isn't at the center, you'll end up exhausted and frustrated. The good news is that when you let go, He acts. When Peter tried to walk on water in his own strength, he sank. But when he cried out, Jesus sustained him. Your faith is not measured by how much you can control, but by how much you dare to let go. Maybe today you're at a dead end, repeating, I have to figure this out myself. Stop. Breathe. Remember the words of Jesus. Apart from me, you can do nothing, John 15 verse 5. Surrender is not defeat. It is the door to the supernatural. The next time you feel the weight of control, repeat, Father, I do my part, but the outcome depends on you. You will see how the impossible moves when you stop clinging to what was never yours to hold. Letting go is not an act of weakness, but an exercise of radical faith, and yet our soul resists. Like a child clenching his fist tightly around a broken toy, we cling to the familiar, even if it hurts us. The psalmist puts it crudely. My soul is clinging to the dust, Psalm 119 verse 25. That adherence to the terrain, to what we can see and touch, betrays us. We confuse control with safety and uncertainty with danger. But God does not call us to live in the illusion of self-sufficiency, but in the freedom of dependence. Fear is the great obstacle. Fear that, if we let go, everything will collapse. Fear that God will not act as we expect, or that His timing will not match ours. Psalm 56 verse 3 reveals the antidote. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Notice the contrast. The psalmist does not deny fear, but chooses to act in spite of it. We, on the other hand, often turn fear into an altar where we sacrifice our peace, believing that the more we cling, the more protected we will be. The paradox is that only when we let go we discover that God already sustained what we thought we were holding. Another reason is mistrust. We have prayed before, and the answers did not come as we expected. Perhaps we asked for healing, and the disease came. We long for a yes and receive a no. Psalm 13 verse 1 cries out, How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? That silent rage, that wound of feeling ignored becomes a wall, but the same psalm ends with a startling statement. But I trust in your love. My heart rejoices in your salvation, Psalm 13 verse 5. Faith does not eliminate questions, but chooses to believe that God's silence is not absence, but preparation. There is also pride. To admit that we can't control something is to acknowledge our limitation, and that hurts. We like to see ourselves as captains of our ship, not as passengers in God's ship. Psalm 131 illustrates this beautifully. I am not arrogant, nor do I pretend things too great for myself. On the other hand, I have calmed and still my soul. That image of a weaned child no longer crying for what he doesn't need should be our goal. But we insist on wrangling as if our plan were superior to that of the Creator who designed the stars. Culture makes this struggle worse. We live in an era that idolizes self-control, productivity, and hyper-planning. They tell us, if you want it, you will make it, but they rarely mention that there are dreams that must die for others to be born. Psalm 127 verse 2 warns, "In vain do you rise early and go to bed late, and toil to eat bread by working hard, for he grants sleep to his loved ones." God does not reward wear and tear, but obedience. Your value is not in what you achieve, but in who sustains you. Sometimes the problem is the misinterpretation of divine sovereignty. We think, if God controls everything, why act? But the Bible shows a balance. Joseph interpreted dreams, but it was God who brought him to the palace. Nehemiah built walls, but it was the Spirit who moved hearts. Psalm 37 verse 5 sums it up. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust him, and he will act. Notice the order. You deliver, he acts. It is not passivity. It is cooperation with the divine. There is an emotional resistance as well. Letting go hurts because it implies mourning, giving up what we imagine life would be like. Psalm 34 verse 18 promises, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted." God doesn't minimize your pain, but he invites you into an exchange. Your plans broken by his purpose, your frailty by his strength. Every time we say, "Thy will be done," like Jesus in Gethsemane, we discover that surrender is not the end, but the beginning of what we really needed. Finally, there is the lie that control makes us happy. Lie. Because even when we achieve what we want, the fear of losing it arises. Psalm 62 verse 10 reminds us, "If riches increase, do not set your heart on them." Peace is not in guaranteeing results, but in resting in God's character. He is not an indifferent judge, but a father who knows even the hairs of your head, Matthew 10 verse 30. Today, if your heart is tired of clinging, repeat with Psalm 23 verse 1. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He doesn't say, "Nothing will hurt me," but in his care, everything will make sense. Its purpose is not to spare you the valley of shadow, but to walk it with you. The question is not, can I trust, but am I willing to let go to find out how he provides? The answer will change everything. The psalmist gives us one of the most precious jewels for the troubled heart. Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he will sustain you. Will not leave the righteous fallen forever. Psalm 55 verse 22. What a blunt promise. We are not designed to carry the weight of life alone. Every time we try to hold problems in our hands, as if we were able to solve them with our limited strength, we are rejecting this divine invitation. The verb to throw implies a deliberate act, a conscious letting go, like someone who takes a heavy backpack off his shoulders after a long walk. "I will lie down in peace, and so I will also sleep, for you alone, the Lord, make me live in confidence." Psalm 4 verse 8. This verse reveals the fruit of true trust, a rest that transcends circumstances. As the world seeks security in bank accounts, health insurance, and retirement plans, the psalmist finds rest in something far more fundamental, the assurance that God is watching over him. It's not that worries go away, but they lose their peace-stealing power when we place them in the right hands. Psalm 37 contains a treasure trove of wisdom, on this subject. Be silent before the Lord and wait on him with patience. V.7. In our age of immediacy, where everything is solved with a click, this mandate is radical. Keeping silent means ceasing to argue with God about how he should act. Waiting patiently means trusting that he will intervene, even if we see no movement. The same psalm adds, "Delight the Lord also, and he will grant you the desires of your heart." V.4. It is not a trick to manipulate God, but a change of focus. When he becomes our delight, our desires align with his will. God is our refuge and strength, our very help in tribulations. Therefore we will not fear, even if the earth be removed. Psalm 46 verses 1-2. Here we find a faith that defies human logic. When everything seems to be falling apart, relationships, health, the economy, the psalmist proclaims unshakable trust. Notice that it does not say there will be no earthquakes, but we will not fear during them. This is the essence of biblical trust, not the absence of storms, but God's presence in the midst of them. Psalm 91, that spiritual shield so dear to believers, begins with a powerful statement. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High shall dwell under the shadow of the Almighty. V.1. The secret is in the verb to dwell. It is not an occasional visit, but a permanent residence in the awareness of his care. The following verses describe protection from snares, pestilences, and night terrors, but the ultimate promise is this: he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will be safe. V.4. What a tender image! The God of the universe shelters us like a hen to her chicks. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23 verse 1. This iconic verse condenses an entire theology of divine provision. The psalmist does not list material possessions, but declares a spiritual reality. With God as shepherd, we have the essentials. The sheep do not understand the shepherd's movements, but they trust his guidance. So, when we don't understand God's ways, can rest in the fact that he knows the green pastures and the still waters that await us. V.2. Psalm 62 verse 8 exhorts us, "Let your heart pour out before him. God is our refuge." Here we see the invitation to radical transparency. There are no emotions too dark to share with God, no thoughts too embarrassing. The word pour suggests a complete emptying without reservations. Many times our lack of trust is born of presenting God with edited versions of ourselves when he longs for our authenticity. Those who trust in Jehovah are like Mount Zion, which does not move, but endures forever. Psalm 125 verse 1. In contrast to the instability of the world, the believer who rests in God acquires an unshakable steadfastness. It's not that it doesn't feel the winds of adversity, but that its roots are planted in solid ground. The psalm continues, "As Jerusalem is surrounded by mountains, so the Lord is around his people." V.2. Divine protection does not always prevent battles, but it guarantees that we will not be alone in them. "Teach me, O Lord, thy way. I will walk in your truth." Psalm 86 verse 11. This simple prayer contains profound wisdom. Instead of demanding that God bless our ways, we ask him to show us his. True confidence is demonstrated when we are willing to change course according to his direction. The psalmist adds, "Unify my heart to fear your name," an acknowledgement that our allegiance is often divided between God and our own strategies. Psalm 121, that pilgrimage hymn, begins with a crucial question and answer. Where will my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. V.1-2. By identifying God as creator, the psalmist states that our helper has no limitations. The following verses emphasize his constant watchfulness. Thy foot shall not give to the slippery, neither shall he that keepeth sleep v.3. While we sleep, God watches. When we grow weary, he remains alert. But I trust in you, O Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hand. Psalm 31, verses 14 to 15. This statement of faith comes in the midst of a psalm filled with anguish, demonstrating that trust does not deny pain, but transcends it. The psalmist recognizes that even the times, those deadlines we so eagerly want to control, are in divine hands. What a liberation to know that our delays, our waits, our opportune moments are overseen by someone who sees the whole picture. Psalm 37, verse 7 gives us the perfect framework for understanding Abraham's life. Keep silent before the Lord and hope in him. Imagine the scene. A 75-year-old man hears a divine voice ordering him to leave his land without knowing the destination. The extraordinary thing is not that he obeyed, but that he departed without knowing where he was going. Hebrews 11, verse 8. Abraham models the essence of surrender, walking into the invisible, sustained only by a promise. When years later God asks for Isaac, that same man who once lied out of fear now raises the knife on Mount Moriah, Genesis 22. Psalm 18, verse 30 comes alive in his story. The way of God is perfect. The word of Jehovah is tested. He is a shield to all those who take refuge in him. Moses shows us another facet of surrender. After failing in his strength, Exodus 2 verses 11 to 15, he spent 40 years in the wilderness until God called him from the bush. Their protest, "Who am I?" Exodus 3 verse 11 reveals the divine paradox. God does not seek our abilities, but our availability. Psalm 90, written by this same man, contains a moving confession. Teach us to number our days, that we may win a wise heart. v.12. Moses learned that true wisdom consists in recognizing that our life is like the grass that blooms in the morning and withers in the evening. v.5-6. And yet, we are instruments of the eternal. Joseph's story hurts because it shows how much we must let go of before we see purpose. Sold by his brothers, falsely accused, forgotten in prison, for 13 years there was no sign that God would transform evil into good. Genesis 50 verse 20. Psalm 105 verses 18 to 19 describes this process. They afflicted their feet with fetters. His soul was laid in iron. Until the hour when his word was fulfilled, Jehovah's saying proved it. Joseph received no divine explanations as he suffered, only the quiet certainty that God was at work. His deliverance came when he least expected it, reminding us of Psalm 30 verse 5. Weeping will endure at night, and joy will come in the morning. Ruth, the foreigner, chose uprooting as an act of faith. His statement, "Whither thou goest, I will go," Ruth 1 verse 16, contrasts with our generation that calculates risks before committing. Leaving her land and pagan gods, this woman without social status became a great-grandmother of David and ancestor of Christ. Psalm 91 verse 1 came true for her. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall dwell under the shadow of the Almighty. Boaz praised their surrender, Ruth 2 verse 12, showing how God rewards those who trust in him against all human logic. David, even more surprising, modeled the delivery in the midst of chaos. Anointed king at age 16, he spent 14 years fleeing from Saul. Psalm 57, written in a cave while being pursued, contains this cry, "Have mercy on me, O God. In the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until calamities pass." v.1. What is remarkable is that David knew he was the chosen one, but he refused to take the throne into his own hands. 1 Samuel 24 verse 6. He understood what Psalm 75 verses 6 to 7 states, "Neither from the east nor from the west, but God is the judge. He humbles one and exalts another." The widow of Zarephath, 1 Kings 17, faced the supreme challenge, giving her last portion of food during a famine. The prophet Elijah asked him for the impossible. "First make me a muffin." His obedience activated the miracle of the flour and oil that did not run out. Psalm 81 verse 10 speaks directly to his story. "Open your mouth and I will fill it." This woman teaches us that surrender always precedes provision, and that God tests our faith at the point where it hurts most to let go. Job is perhaps the most extreme case. In one day, he lost children, wealth, and health. Their first reaction was to worship, Job 1 verse 20, but then came the raw pain that fills 37 chapters of questions. The climax comes when God responds from a whirlwind, not with explanations, but by revealing his greatness. Job 42 verse 5 marks the turn. "I heard you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you." Psalm 119 verse 71 makes sense here. "It is good for me that I have been humbled, that I may learn your statutes." Job didn't get answers, but he received God, and that was enough. The woman with an issue of blood, Mark 5, spent all her money on doctors before touching Jesus' garment. His story illustrates Psalm 62 verse 8. "Let your heart pour out before him." 12 years of shame and ritual impurity ended when she surrendered to the evidence. Only an act of radical faith would heal her. By confessing his theft of the miracle, he received not only physical healing, but the sweetest declaration. "Daughter, your faith has saved you." v.34. Peter walking on water, Matthew 14, encapsulates our struggle. As long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, the impossible was real. When he saw the wind, he began to sink. His cry, "Lord, save me," resounded with Psalm 69 verses 1 to 2. "Save me, O God, for the waters have entered into the soul." Jesus rebuked him. "O man of little faith, why did you hesitate?" The lesson is clear. Surrender is not a moment, but a constant gaze. The thief on the cross, Luke 23, shows the final surrender. With no time for good works, he could only cry out, "Remember me." His story fulfills Psalm 51 verse 17. "The sacrifice of God is the broken spirit. The contrite and humble heart you will not despise, O God." In his last breath, he received paradise, proving that it is never too late to surrender to grace. These stories converge on Psalm 25 verses 1 to 2. "To you, O Lord, I will lift up my soul. My God, I trust in you." They are not stories of perfection, but of fragile humans who chose to believe against all evidence. As Psalm 32 verse 8 promises, "I will make you understand and teach you the way you should walk." Surrender is never the end, but the beginning of seeing God at work. Psalm 38 verse 4 crudely describes the weight of unnecessary control. "My iniquities have passed over my head. Like a heavy burden they have been aggravated upon me." When we insist on carrying burdens that do not belong to us, the soul begins to cry out under the weight. You wake up fatigued before you start your day, as if you're carrying invisible backpacks filled with what-ifs. And I have to resolve. Anxiety becomes your constant companion, a clear sign that you've crossed the line between healthy responsibility and an obsession with control. Psalm 13 verse 2 asks, "How long shall I put counsel in my soul?" This is the first sign. Endless internal dialogues where you review scenarios, plan answers, and rehearse conversations that may never happen. Your mind becomes a theater where you play all the roles, trying to predict and prevent every possible problem. The psalmist recognizes this mental exhaustion and contrasts it with the peace of those who place their worries in God. "I have trusted in your mercy. My heart will rejoice in your salvation." v.5. "My thoughts are stirred within me." Psalm 55 verse 2. This is how the psalmist describes the second sign, mental rumination. When you can't turn off your mind at night, when the should have said/said are repeated in a loop, you're in over-control territory. The same psalm offers the solution in verse 22. Cast your burden upon the Lord. Notice the active verb. It is not to wait passively, but to deliberately transfer the weight. A third sign appears in Psalm 39, verse 6. All men who live are like nothing. When the desire for control dominates, we begin to see people as pieces on our emotional chessboard. We manipulate with silences, demand with hints, or resent when others don't follow our script. The psalmist here reflects on the brevity of life, reminding us that investing energies in controlling others is as ephemeral as